Okay, welcome back to yet another live stream. Aren't you people getting spoiled these past few days? But anyway, today's a special one. We have Scott from Cfcb Unlimited joining us to discuss all things 3D printing and in particular action figures. And throughout the course of this live stream, we have special discount codes for the CFCB Unlimited web store. The link to that is pinned to the top of these comments on YouTube. Now, without further ado, I'm going to bring in Scott and then we can talk about these discount codes. So everyone, please welcome Scott from Cfcb Unlimited.
Hello.
Hello there, Scott. How are you?
Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. So very glad to have you here because I have shown quite a number of your mask 3 3/4 inch scale figures that I think most people that have seen the videos absolutely love.
Fantastic.
Now, as I said, we have discount codes which will be put up randomly throughout the course of the stream. Now, let me tell you what these codes equate to. So you could get 10% off your entire purchase. There are 20 of those, or it can be used 20 times, if that makes sense. So in other words, 20 people can get 10% off. We then have 15% off. That's limited to 15 people. 25% off. That's limited to 5. 30% off. That's limited to 5. 45% off one item. That's limited to 3. 50% off one item. That's limited to 2. 75% off one item. That's limited to 1. And 100% off the cost of one item. And that is limited to 1. And in addition to that, another code will grant free shipping, and that is limited to 10. And these will be posted at random. So before we go any further, I'm going to post one of these codes right now. So this code here, A26SQQ, that's all you need to enter. Do not enter code 1-. That's just for my reference. The code is A26SQQ. And if I can, I'm going to post that right now into the comments to make it even easier should you wish to simply copy and paste. So let me see if that works. There we go. So the first code has been released. Now, I don't know what these codes equate to. It could be anything that I just discussed. But again, thank you, Scott, for giving us these codes. And,
you're very welcome. I'd like to give back.
Hopefully the viewers can benefit from these. I'm just going to quickly catch up with the chat before we get on with the conversation. Don't want to keep these folks waiting too long. So Kenny is hoping for a great live stream. I hope so too. There's my link for the store, which is pinned to the top of the YouTube chat. So should you wish to use a code, use the link to the store, enter your code at checkout, and see what you get. Seth says, let's roll. Blake says, bang your head. Ben is here. Hi, Dean. Hi to all in the chat. Thanks, Ben. Adrian says, hello there, Dean. How are you? I'm good, thank you. Seth saying hi to Scott.
Hey.
Great Christmas song. Excellent. Oh, thank you. I'm glad you liked it. Blake saying hi to Scott. And hello. There is the first code. Again, if you wish to simply copy that, please do so. Post it in the checkout on the CFCB store. Again, linked to the top of the chat. Jeff says, hello, good evening. Good evening, everyone. And also, let me just say, if you have a question for Scott regarding 3D printing, please put your questions into the comments and I will bring them up and let Scott answer for you. So Scott, before we go any further, I just want to sort of get an understanding. How long have you been doing 3D printing?
I got into it a little over 2.5 years ago. 2.5 years ago. When I first started everything, I only started making the card backs because I was wanting to card all my Star Wars figures that I had. I wanted to make them, and it just kind of slowly progressed to that from there. And I'm like, well, maybe I should make my own. So then I bought the FDM printer. And while that printed it, it just didn't look good. And so I said, well, I want to venture into resin printing. And I've been hooked ever since. So
okay. So going back a step further then, you were making your own card backs.
Correct.
Again, I know nothing about this process. Is it a case of having a real high-end printer printing off on what glossy stock and then adhering it to cardboard and cutting it?
Yeah, pretty much. What you do is there's two ways you can go about it. You can get glossy printer paper, or sticker printer paper, which you can peel off and just stick, or you can just get high definition photo paper and then use adhesive glue to stick it to a card back, and then you just got to pick the right thickness of the card back. I like to use the comic book backs. You know how you do little backs that goes to comic books? That seemed to be the right thickness. Plus, with the photo paper that's adhered to it, it gives it a nice sturdy back. So
right. Now, do you have to use some sort of special guillotine for cutting? And what about the corners of the card back?
Yeah, I just bought a big paper cutter, and each of those card backs are 6x9. That's a standard with this 6x9. And as far as the corners go, I bought this little tool.
Okay.
And I just put it there and crimps it, so it gives it the nice round corner to it.
Yeah.
And I have the hanger punch too. I do that with the Star Wars ones. I don't do that with the mask ones.
Right.
But
nice. So, okay, so we have the good cardstock, good quality printer paper adhered to the good cardstock. How do you source the bubbles that the figures then go into?
I have a couple of vendors, but Empire Blisters is what I use. They're really good about shipping, and you can just Google Empire Blisters. They have a wide variety of the blisters. They just come, and you have to use your own adhesive. It's taken me forever to get the right type of adhesive to put down. Make them stick long term. I still haven't. I started trying to figure out the waffle pattern, but I'm like, it's too much. I mean, it got real expensive experimenting.
So has there been any figures that you've made that were just too big for the blisters that this company makes, or have you not come across that? Oh, you've come across that problem. So can you custom order a blister from these guys?
No, they won't do custom orders. They will be glad to take your money to set up something, and they'll sell it on their end. But it'll cost you a small fortune to have them do it. I've looked at doing my own blisters, and it's a process. So I'm still working on doing my own. I did buy a vacuum form machine that I use to put my figures in. When you get them with carded, I'll have them packaged in with the vacuum form plastic, so they don't flop around or anything. I do that, but as far as the actual blisters, I don't make those yet.
Okay. So hi to Jason there, and Gerard says, hope we're all well. Yes. So here's a question from Seth. He says, did you ever try vinyl prints to paste on the card backs? These can also be die cut in a shape on a plotter.
I do have some printable vinyl. I use those for the Bespin Princess Leia capes. I make those. Those are easier to do, and I use them on the printable vinyl. I do have a die cutter, which makes all my decals and stickers and stuff with. So that's what I use for my other stuff.
So in terms of the classic vintage Star Wars vinyl capes, did you have a hard time finding a vinyl that really did match the original, or was it pretty easy to source that? Oh, it was hard.
No, it was a hassle to find, especially the Jawa and Obi-Wan. That has a particular color, and I think I spent over 6.5 months just looking and researching, buying, and spending a lot of money that was unnecessary in the long run. But I finally settled on one, and so that I'm happy with it. It looks identical.
Nice.
Now, it doesn't have the same texture, but the same color. Kenner had their own little, I don't know if they rolled it on something to get their own little texture or what, but very unique.
Yeah. Dar3P says, hi from London, hi to you. And oh, here she is, Mrs. 88. And again, there's the code, the first code we've released. So if anyone has tried it, let us know how successful you were. So now we've established that you're doing your own card backs.
Mm-hmm.
You're making your own figures, obviously. Now, I know that you also offer Star Wars weapons. Are those also 3D printed?
Yes. Yep. I had my 3D designer go ahead and replicate exactly what the weapons look like. So
Right.
they're all 3D printed. I have a whole case full of different ones. And
Yeah.
now the resin will typically come in standard colors like a gray, a white, a clear. Sometimes you'll get some other different colors, but you'll never get the exact colors.
Right.
So I like to, a lot of creators will print them and then paint everything.
Mm-hmm.
I prefer to try, I bought a bunch of dyes and I've been playing with it. And I prefer to dye the resin to the majority of the color of the figure. So when it prints,
sure,
it has that real figure look per se. You know, it doesn't look completely painted.
Yeah. Yeah, because I remember we're talking, maybe circa 2004, 2005, I began buying some more vintage Star Wars figures with a view just kind of like see what I had, kept what I liked, and then sold what I didn't need to just sort of keep the process going. And that's when the reproduction stuff began hitting the market. And in particular, some of these Luke Jedi Knight lightsabers were just horrendous because those are being painted green.
Right.
And when you put it in his hand, the paint would come off.
Right.
And you were left with this, oh my God, this thing is so fake. But not only did it look fake, it just felt wrong. Whatever plastic they used was not the right plastic.
Yeah, I remember those. In fact, when I made a bunch, I don't know if you can see these.
Let me bring this up. Let me see.
It's
oh yeah. Oh,
it's like a clear green.
Oh, nice.
And so it's all printed, so it's like a see-through.
Oh, perfect.
So I did those for. It looks better in person, but I did those for the Lukes, and I printed them in red for Vader. And nice. I have some, and I made the telescoping ones in the particular color. So yeah, they're not painted; they're printed in the color it needs to be.
Perfect. Yeah, because like I said, when I got my hands on that painted one, I thought, my God, this thing is just terrible.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
Absolutely awful. So I should point out as well that Seth, who's got the next question, he also does 3D printing. So his questions will be a bit more in depth than anything I could possibly ask. He says, I've been using car wrap vinyl for packaging. Autojet 3551 can give a real nice finish.
I'll have to look into that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Gerard asks, has 3D printing reached its limits, or is it still evolving?
Oh, it's evolving.
Yeah.
Some of the printers my first printer I bought almost a year and a half, 2 years ago now, is out of date, and the big monster one I have now is about a year old, and I think that just came out. Wow. So, and that's starting to get, but yeah, they're fine tuning them every day. The resin is getting better every day. And there's rubber type resin I've been experimenting with.
So just in terms of the resin printing, does that have to be done in a sort of specially ventilated area, or can it be done in someone's bedroom, for example?
I wouldn't recommend a bedroom. You're supposed to ventilate it, they said. Mm-hmm. I don't. I have a big basement that only I use. It's for all my junk. So I run all my printers in my basement. It's ventilated enough. I have central heat and AC down here, but I just run everything out here. But yeah, a lot of people will go overboard. They'll make cases and vacuums and suck all the crap out. But.
Yeah. Now, are there sort of any health risks involved with handling resin? Because I've seen some videos where people are very careful not to touch an uncured resin print. Can you explain what that's all about?
That mostly is because your fingers have oils and stuff in it that will damage the uncured resin.
Okay.
But resin is not super toxic unless you lick your fingers.
Okay.
But I use gloves when I handle it anyway, because it's nasty, it's messy, and
Yeah.
it's just easier to peel off the gloves and throw them in the garbage versus trying to
Right.
wash my hands every 5 minutes, because it does resin printing does get super super messy.
Okay. So when a figure's done printing, does that mean it's actually quite sort of sticky to the touch?
Yeah, when it comes when you're finished printing it, you're supposed to clean it in the alcohol. Was it IPA? That's what I call it.
Hmm.
90 proof or 100. 85 is okay. Not drinking alcohol, obviously, but
Yeah.
a lot of the old school way was you take it and you dip it in a bucket and you kind of clean it with a toothbrush or wipe it down, and then you take the model when it's wet inside and let it
Hmm.
the sun, the UV rays cure it. But now they've come up with these past several years. They've had them. They're called cure and wash machines, and their only sole function is that the cure. It's all in one. It's a bucket, and you pour a whole bunch of the alcohol in there, and you drop the figures into a little basket inside it,
Ah.
and you set the timer for however long you want to wash it. And what it does, it spins one way for 1 minute and
Hmm.
back another way, back and forth. So it's
Ah.
spinning the alcohol all around your uh, figures or your
Right.
parts that you printed, and then you just pull it out, let it air dry, and when it's pretty much dry, then you could put it in the cure machine, and you put it in there on the little round circle. You put it there, and you tell how long you want to cure it, and it just kind of slowly goes around, and UV lights are
Ah.
bouncing off of it, and it's curing it. So
Okay.
that's the way to go, is the wash and cure machines.
Yeah.
I wouldn't do the old school way.
Okay. Um, Damien saying, "Howdy, guys. Sorry for being late. Not a problem. Again, a non-notification alert. Yeah, YouTube's kind of weird." Um, so Seth again asks, in the
Okay, sure.
development of a figure, do you use a 3D scanner to get your model? If so, which scanner? Do you also adjust models in CAD software or draw models from scratch?
No, I don't use 3D scanners, and I do a lot of the stuff that I make, but I have two designers I've worked with.
Right.
Um, George Zapata or Jorge Zapata is fantastic, and Dustin Pruitt. I use both those guys, and they're just quick and phenomenal when it comes to the models they do for me, and they do everything from scratch. They don't do any scanning, so all the figures that are made, even the masked figures,
Hmm.
they're handmade, or not handmade, but they're hand designed. They're not
Yeah.
a scan or anything. So it's, I mean, if you look very very closely, you could tell it's not a one for one,
Hmm.
but for the most part, they've done a very good job of replicating those figures.
Nice. So I'm going to pull up the next discount code, which again is a mystery, as much of a mystery to me as it is to you guys watching. So bearing in mind this code here, the A26SQQ, that is valid for the duration of this stream.
Mhm.
So feel free to save that somewhere. The next codes we're going to pull up, number 2. Now, just to remind everyone, don't enter code 2 dash. The code is HVUHCN, and I will attempt to actually post that in the chat to make it easier should you wish just to copy and paste. Let me see. That's gone through. Yes, it has. So again, these codes are a complete mystery. You won't know what it is until you actually apply it at checkout. Seth again. Interesting to know that your mask figures were hand drawn. Great job. Must say my compliments to the designers. Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, they're fantastic. I love those guys.
Yeah. I mean, again, because I don't really understand the process, I had just wrongly assumed that you had scanned an original and then
Right.
just upscaled it prior to printing. But the fact that these are
Mhm.
brand new designs, even better.
Yeah, the 3D scanning has come a long way, but as far as scanning something, especially that small, there's a lot of, I know people who've done it, and there's so much cleanup that
Hmm.
is needed because it just kind of looks blotchy and doesn't have that crisp look.
Right.
But the guys are just phenomenal, and Dustin is the one who designed my bantha, so
Right.
and so he was fantastic on integral in that, which is That's the biggest one with the most moving parts and a trap door, springing trap door, and everything. So
yeah, that's quite interesting that both you and Chris were able to get the trap door on the back, and yet that other guy had this weird plug thing going on. It's quite,
yeah,
quite something that, and they were, and they told us it could not be done. Well, clearly it can be done.
right. Yeah, it's simple to do. Well, not simple to do. It just
Yeah.
takes some engineering. But yeah, I work closely with the designers, and sometimes I make them mad because I'm kind of picky.
Yeah.
But I want the customer to get what he's paying for.
Right.
I'm not a stand solo. I don't have a factory, so everything I do is by hand. So
Right.
I want to make sure at least they're getting what they're paying for.
So I'm going to bring up the code again. So this is the latest code now. On the subject of everything being hand painted, is that all done by yourself?
Yes.
Wow.
I just recently, my daughter had come up to visit in October, and I asked her if she wanted to paint some figures, and because she's as crafty as I am, so she painted a handful of them, and it looked fantastic. But yeah, everything else, it's all done by hand. I just hand paint every single one, even the small details.
Yeah.
So that's why it takes some time. If I get a lot of orders for a particular figure, so that's why it takes a long time to get them out. This is not my full-time job, so I try to do it on my spare time.
Yeah.
And so everything is hand painted.
So again, because I don't know a lot about this stuff, am I right in saying that Kenner back in the day, and I guess to this day Hasbro, they basically would put a blank figure in some sort of rack and have a printer come down and put the eyes and maybe the insignia on the chest. That's how they did it. But
Pretty
for
much.
you, everything is it by brush?
Brush.
Wow.
Yep. Some things I use, like I said, I have a die cut machine, and so some of the stuff I will use die cut vinyl for, or I have some water slide decals that I'll use some water. Like, remember you make the plastic models you get from the store, and they have those stickers you dip in water. So I can print my own water slide decals, and I'll put them on stuff like that, like the Boba Fett, the 3 3/4 inch duplicate I make. I use the decal, put his insignia on there, and I put his patch. Unlike the Kenner when they didn't do any, but so I use the water slide decals or vinyl stickers for those.
Right, and again, is that something that you would buy? What, a water slide decal printer sheet paper?
It's a specific paper.
Okay,
you get a specific paper, and once you print it, then there's an application that you have to put on it, several applications, and let it cure before you dip it in water. Otherwise, the ink will just go everywhere.
Right. Okay. Interesting. So, Mark here. Good to see you, Mark. He says, "Evening, Dean. How did you get on with the Stormtrooper helmet casts for Christmas lights?" They're still sitting there. I tried doing some resin casting, having taken a silicone mold, but I was having a hell of a time with air bubbles.
Yeah.
Especially on those sort of round parts on the Trooper helmet. It was just a nightmare.
I started off with doing what you're doing first, and that's when I'm like, there's got to be a better way.
Yeah.
I would buy the figures, I'd take them apart, and I would make the silicone molds.
Yeah.
And I would buy that, the resin and mix it up and try to inject it in there with syringes and put it inside my compressor to suck up all the air.
Yeah.
And I got more failures than you would believe.
Well, bearing in mind, I don't have the compression chamber, so I was like squeezing and tapping, hoping for the best. I think I got one good one, and the rest, the air pockets that formed in the most intricate of parts. I thought, this is a nightmare. Forget it.
It's I don't miss doing that.
No, and also as well, the resin itself wasn't expensive, but the silicone for the molds.
Oh, it's ridiculous price.
Yeah.
It's gotten even more expensive recently too.
Wow.
Yeah.
So yeah, I kind of gave up on that, to be honest. Gerard says, the fact us fans can be united with some of our favorite toy lines once again is just great. Hats off to you. Yes. I think it's absolutely fantastic that someone, CFCB, is giving us Mask in some form again, because that is one license that has been left to rot for decades.
It
And
has.
I really don't know why.
Yeah, I don't understand. I mean, like I said, I don't know why they. I don't think they. I don't think anybody knows who owns it. That owns it,
Yeah.
but they say that Hasbro, but it was purchased through a purchase that was part of a purchase.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen people comment that to them, without the vehicles, Mask is nothing. But to me, that's not true at all because my first ever Mask toys were the 2 packs of figures.
Right.
So for the longest time, I only had Mask figures and I was very happy with those. But what could be the problem is because the vehicles had such intricate mechanisms,
Mm-hmm.
uh, which I guess in this day and age, for them to replicate that would be expensive, and they may not want to invest in such tooling. But
It definitely take. In fact, one of my designers, Dustin, he's been working on 3 3/4 inch scale Thunderhawk.
wow,
So yeah, he's been trying to work out the details. So it's a big undertaking. So
yeah,
he's been working on that. So that's a project that we're hoping to get done soon. But
yeah.
yeah,
I mean, the fact is, for me, um, obviously I've put them in storage for now. But when I had my Mask vehicles out on display, I had them all in just vehicle mode
right.
on display. Now, if Hasbro were to give us a non-transforming vehicle with the figures, I'd be perfectly happy with that.
That's one thing I've thought about doing too, is
Yeah,
make a non-transforming vehicle. Like you, I set mine up in the
yeah.
vehicle mode. I prefer it in the vehicle mode versus attack mode. But
I mean, in some cases, attack mode looks a bit ridiculous. Whereas the
right.
vehicles themselves, they had some classic 80s
Oh
iconic
yeah.
vehicles in the line. So that's how I like to look at them. Um, but I don't know if anyone else is aware of this, but Scott has made one Mask figure that Kenner never did, and that is Gloria Baker in the cartoon colors. So I got that one delivered when I was away in Thailand. I've not done the video yet. I'll do a video showcasing that. But it's great to finally get the Gloria Baker that we all remember from the cartoon, because
Yeah, that
she
was a
wasn't actually released by Kenner. I think it was a split seconds, in fact.
right. She came out with the Lamborghini, I believe.
Yeah, yeah, Stiletto
Yeah, the
Lamborghini.
stiletto. Yeah,
And the funny part was she was, I wouldn't say she was second in command to Matt Tracker, but she played a very big role in most of the cartoons.
yes,
And to never have had her as a figure was quite odd on Kenner's part, but that's been rectified.
yeah,
And if anyone's wondering, I'll get the video done as soon as I possibly can. You can see this amazing Mask scale Gloria Baker in the colors we all remember her as. And is that still available on the store?
not yet.
Not yet, but it will be.
It will be back. Yes,
Okay,
because I've had a lot of requests for that figure.
right, perfect. Ben asks, says Scott, can you print parts in batches or is everything done individually? So I'm guessing that means, can you do like one printing of 10 right arms and then another printing of 10 left arms, or do you do one figure at a time, piece by piece?
I have done a print of a whole bunch of, like, I print all the mask heads
Yeah.
in the flesh tone, so I
Hmm.
don't have to paint the heads, so they look
Right.
more figure-ish. So I
Yeah.
put about I can get about 35 heads, so I
Okay.
print them out by themselves.
Right.
Um, and like the Cliff Dagger, I printed the head and the arms in that resin in that color only
Hmm.
because he had the most flesh, and in the
Yeah.
others I did a different one. But yeah, I try to do. It depends on which one I'm doing, and so like I said before, some of the printers I use, like the smaller ones, I can get 2 figures per.
Hmm.
My biggest one, I can get about 10 to 12 figures
Right.
per.
So once these resin prints come off, are they more or less good to go, or is there still some sort of fine tuning required, a bit of sanding perhaps, or?
Yes. So yes and no. It depends on the
Right.
printer. Like I said, my big one, it's a lot newer and there's less work to do. By work, I mean fitting the joints in. As
Right.
far as the aesthetics, it's done. They're perfect. Now resin will have its sometimes it's not always 100%. It'll have a little bit of shrinkage or a little bit of expanding, especially when you ship them. That's why I put the sticker on the side. You know, the limbs may be snug
Right.
because the resin depends on the temperature of where it's shipped. It could
Mhm.
swell or constrict, but it's mostly as done. You know, when it's cured, it's fine. But so yeah, I'll make sure that everything fits before I paint. So I'll put the figure completely together
Okay.
and make sure everything's good to go. And sometimes I'll have to sand down, you know, the peg that slides into the torso just to
Mhm.
get the right fit.
Okay. Nice. So Damien is asking, would CFCB consider doing figures from Palitoy's Action Force line, such as Baron Ironblood? That is a great question.
Yeah, I'm like I said, I'm open to anything that fans want. You know, customers,
Yeah.
if they want to think a line would do well, I'll go ahead and start putting them out.
Yeah.
I do have a list that my designer is working on besides the mask. We're working on A-Team.
Oh,
We're
wow.
working on the Knight Rider. Working
Mhm.
on the Fall Guy with all those. We're working on Grease. You know, the main characters
Yeah.
from Grease.
Yeah.
You know, I prefer stuff from way back. You know, like the '80s,
Yeah.
and that's where I kind of fit.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I will put that on the list too.
Fantastic. Because certainly in terms of Action Force, I've got to confess, I'm a little bit disappointed because the current, I guess it's Valoverse Action Force to me simply is not Action Force. Action Force was the Palitoy figures that I got back in 1984. And those were some of my favorite figures as a kid. But what's come out now under the name of Action Force, whilst they're great looking figures, to me, it's not Action Force. So to get 3 3/4 inch 5 POAs of those classic Action Force figures would be quite awesome. Thanks, Damien. Seth again. How many copies of a
I lost
design do
audio
you?
here. 1 second.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, so Seth is asking, how many copies of a design do you make on average?
It varies on the popularity of the figure. Um, like Matt Tracker was the first one we did, and I think I ended up making well over 100 of those figures.
Mm,
It got very popular in Miles Mayhem. Those were
yeah.
the two. Prior to that, Boba Fett was the hot seller, but Matt Tracker has outsold everything.
Wow.
But
Excellent. Tree Theodore is asking, Glenn Baker's commissioned action figures appear amazing. How feasible is it to create personalized figures for collectors? Now, I believe you offer that service on the CFCB store.
I'm sorry, say it again.
So Tree is asking, how feasible is it to create personalized figures for collectors? But I think you offer that service.
Yes, yeah, it's on there under. I can look real quick.
In fact, I think I have the store opened up. If I can call it up, let me see.
Got the website. Yeah, sorry about the audio
Yeah.
there. My dog chewed on my cable,
Huh.
and so I got to wiggle it to make it work.
Yeah. Okay, I'm not seeing it offhand, but trust me, on the CFCB website, link at the top of the chat, there is the option to send in numerous photographs of your face,
Right.
and Scott can do that for you and put it on any, I guess, any body that you currently make. So
Yeah,
you
anybody.
could be Boba Fett or Matt Tracker. Or,
Yeah, I can put on anybody that I have. I can do a head for that.
right.
Pull my thing up here. I have one. Yeah, I have one on here. A customer design custom figure.
Hmm.
Basically, if they want to do their own for reason, I mean, whatever design that they come up with, I have that on here. I don't know how to share this link, but there's various options. We can design it. They can have someone design it and send it in, and then I can take care of it and print it from there.
Right.
But yeah, and we can either card it, make it loose, we can make it any size. So
Nice. So again, check the CFCB store for that. So it can be done, Tree. So
yeah, absolutely.
So maybe at some point we'll see a Tree Theodore action figure. Melvor says, greetings to you.
Greetings.
And Mark Telford is asking, got some 3 3/4 stormtroopers fodder, many missing one hand. I'd like to replace the hands for army builders. It's a nightmare finding spares. Don't have a 3D printer, but think that would be the way to go. So could you print hands just for stormtroopers?
Yeah, I can print hands.
Okay.
I have a stormtrooper model, the Kenner stormtrooper model, not the newer ones. All my models are Kenner based. But yeah, I can print hands, and
cool.
I can put it with a little peg, and they just drill a hole in their figure.
Right. Awesome. Jarrod asks, 3D printed Dean for all fans of the channel, just putting it out there. But you know what? Okay, let's just say you were to do a 3D printed Dean. What would it come with? Like a beer bottle?
Whatever you want to bring it in.
Plaid shirt, jeans and boots.
Yeah.
Very simple. Seth says, did you ever consider optimizing the resin cast process by using 3D printing? For example, by printing the mold with channels for overflow?
Yeah, I have thought about doing a lot of that. In fact, I'm working on the Thunderhawk tires. I've printed out a mold for those tires so I can use, rubber resin and force inject it in there. But sometimes when you print the molds, even though you print them on the exact same time, the exact same printer, everything's cut the same. When you print them off, sometimes it might not be exact fit. Right. So it's, you might get lucky and you might not. So,
okay. And another one from Seth. Do you experience a difference in usage between clear resin and colored resin? For example, in the curing process, do you use a curing station?
Yes. Each resin will have its own chemical makeup, and you kind of want to go off of what that resin recommends as far as the settings, but you also have to do like an experiment print first. For every time I change resin, there's a 3D model that I print, and it'll tell me, which setting is the best for it, and I go from there. But yeah, the clear resin usually is thicker, and you wouldn't use the same settings as you would a different, like a standard white, because it'll come out really thick and hard, and it won't look right. You lose detail.
Okay.
And then, but as far as curing or washing and curing, that's the same process. It all works the same after it's printed.
Right. And then he's asking here, which resin printers do you use?
I use Anycubic. I use the Photon Mono 4K. I also have the M3 Max, which is the big one.
Right.
I like that one because it has a feeder. So I have a bottle of resin behind it. So as it's printing, when the resin starts getting low, it feeds more resin into it, so I can make real big prints.
Right. So let me just clarify this. So in terms of the filament printing, I've seen those where they have spools of the plastic filament getting fed in.
Right.
And then that's almost, in a like very crude term, it's almost dropped in the correct pattern. Right. And I guess it's hot at that point. So
yeah, it has a hot, that's what I start off. It has a hot end, and it moves it around, and it melts the plastic, and it kind of goes around and it builds from the bottom up.
Right.
And resin is the opposite way.
And resin, is it done is it a tank of resin?
Correct. Like the 3D FDM printers, the plastic ones, it prints here and it works its way up.
Yeah.
Whereas the resin printer, you have a bucket of resin or a vat of resin, and it prints and it goes up, so it builds the model this way.
Right.
So you'd see it building. But yeah, it works with UV light and the screen in there, and it flashes the light that cures the resin as it goes up, and so that's how you get the print.
Got it. Gerard says, how do the finished products hold up over time, i.e. with discoloration, etc.?
I've as far as holding up, I haven't had any kind of fall apart. I use ABS like resin, so it's the really strong resin.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as discoloration, I mostly paint. So, but I do put
Right.
a clear lacquer on all my stuff, which protects the paint and it protects the resin from sun bleaching or any kind of discoloration. But yeah,
Right.
I always
Okay.
put a
So before we get to Mark's comment, this was the most recent code. I'm going to pull up the next code. Again, disregard the code 3 dash part. The code you're looking for is 8DKJY8. And I will also post that in the chat to make it easier for everyone. And again, these are mystery codes which could be worth up to 100% off the purchase of one item. There we go. It's in the chat there. So Mark said, and this is regarding Action Force, he says, Action Force's Red Shadows might be popular. Yeah, I would say so. Great army builder. So Scott, are you familiar with Palitoy's Action Force line?
Not a lot. I believe that's mostly over in the UK, is it not?
Yeah, it was the sort of UK European version, which preceded G.I. Joe coming into the UK. So for me, I only played with Palitoy's Action Force. And by the time they'd introduced the G.I. Joe line into the UK under the name of Action Force, I was no longer collecting those. I don't know anything about those. I only know about the 5 POA Action Force figures, which I think are fantastic. But the problem for me is, in order to collect them, because they were never sold in America, and because I'm in America, obviously, there are very few for sale within America. They're all for sale in the UK. But the price of shipping from the UK to here, it's just cannot be done. It's ridiculous now. I mean, I was looking at a few classic comics online from the UK, and to get one comic sent from the UK was like something like $24 shipping.
Yeah.
You know,
I run into that a lot shipping my stuff over there. Sometimes it's a ridiculous price for them.
Yeah.
And if they contact me, I'll usually give them a discount code off their product to compensate for the shipping. Because I don't like, I can't. It's basically based on their location because I don't control the shipping costs. So
of course,
I try to help out best I can.
And that's the other thing as well. I've noticed I've been sending a few packages to the UK, because, especially at Christmas time. And on the USPS website, there's no longer the option for first class shipping. I always, because typically if something's under £1 in weight, I'll send it first class. Can't do that now. So therefore, everything now is going priority.
Right.
Oh, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's frustrating.
It is. I mean, we're talking, I guess, 4 or 5 years ago now, but I was doing a side thing whereby I was buying brand new electric guitars and taking them apart and selling each component separately. And I was doing pretty well until the USPS jacked their shipping prices. And it was just impossible, because there was, for example, a guitar neck that I was selling for $30. Shipping was going to be 20 something.
Right.
No one's going to pay $20 shipping for a $30 guitar neck.
Right.
And then again, even with eBay, which I've not done for a while, I'll start again in January. But people like me cannot compete with Amazon's free shipping.
Right. It's tough.
It's impossible. It really has put like a real clamp on the home business side of things for a lot of people.
Yeah, it has. And that's one of the things that frustrate me on mine end, because people do complain about the shipping, and I try to keep it as low as I can. So when I post something in my shop, it asks me the weight and size of the box, and I always try to put it as low as possible. That way the customer doesn't get charged with a huge shipping fee. So.
Yeah, I mean, I've obviously when I do eBay, what the way I do eBay when I'm doing it in bulk, or when I say bulk, I don't mean one of this. I don't mean numerous of the same item. I mean, if I'm listing 10 things, to keep things easy on my end, what I do is photographs, wrap up, package, seal, and write on the box what it is. And when I do the listings, I enter the dimensions and the weight and let eBay work out the shipping.
Right.
And I often check my own listings, and I'm appalled at the price of shipping if I were to ship from this zip code to this zip code. You know, sometimes for one action figure, it's like $8 or $9 shipping.
Right.
Within the one zip code. So you can imagine going across to California, $12, $13 for the one action figure.
California and Texas cost the most when I ship out.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. California's the worst.
It's obscene.
Yeah.
Juan is saying, excellent interview. Well, thanks, Juan.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Mark says, agreed, Dean. G.I. Joe are cool, but when I think Action Force, it's Palatoy 5 POA. Yep. 5 POA all the way for me. Now, I have, obviously, if you've watched any of my videos, you know that I am strictly vintage, with the exception of the McFarlane Batman, only because had there been vintage Batman figures from the TV show that I had as a kid and could still collect, I wouldn't even look at these McFarlanes because I'm all about vintage. But I did, out of curiosity, on a couple of occasions, get hold of a Star Wars vintage collection 3 3/4 inch figure. And to me, that articulation does not work on a figure of that size.
Right.
It's just overly complicated. And it just felt so fragile in my hands. Whereas the old tried and tested 5 POA for me that's where it's at with action figures.
No, I agree with you.
Yeah.
I'm all about vintage as well. That's where I base most of my figures from.
Yeah, absolutely. Max Video Entertainment says, if you can do Red Dwarf figures, I definitely buy the whole set, carded and loose. So Red Dwarf. Now, obviously, I think I may have floated this when we did the live stream to give away the Darth Vader that you kindly sent in for a viewer to win. And I was thinking, if I could have any figures designed, what would they be? But my fear would be if these entities came after you for copyright infringement. Does that ever worry you at all?
It used to.
Yeah.
Used to. But I'm such a small fish that, you know,
yeah.
But the best way that stay off their radar, and I think Stan Solo does a fantastic job too, is making stuff that they don't produce or won't. And as long as you're not trying to compete with their product and on a high quality scale, they're not going to really come after you. And especially homemade stuff like mine, they're not even going to mess with me.
Because I think I may have suggested at one point on that live stream that I would love to have had Duran Duran figures from the Wild Boys video. Now, that sounds all good and well, but a month or so back, they were getting inducted into the Hall of Fame, a Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So I thought to try and get the attention of Duran Duran being in the news, I put together my top 10 Duran Duran singles from the 80s. Now, I knew I couldn't monetize that video because it's not my music, so I didn't even monetize it.
Right.
Hit to YouTube, upload, ding, 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 boom. This video is blocked. I'm like, what do you mean it's blocked? I go in, and bizarrely, the one song, Union of the Snake, the 15 seconds of that song I included, the record company decided, rather than just, let me put it out there and let them take the ad revenue, they blocked the entire video. So I had to remove that song, put in a different one, which really mucked up my top 10.
Right.
And I think to myself, my God, you would rather not have anyone see these songs than just let some small guy put a 15-second clip in his video. This is ridiculous. And similar happened to me on the T Public store or the website store, because I was selling T-shirts there. One of which I used the Star Wars a Rebellion logo and had the term, rebel, and or did I say good guy maybe, or good guy with the rebel logo, and another T-shirt with the Imperial logo saying bad guy. And because of that, I got kicked off the T Public store.
I've had a couple. I have a Teespring store,
Yeah.
and I've had a couple of stuff got removed, and I'm like,
Yeah.
really? Okay.
Yeah. So, I've even heard that if you were to make a T-shirt with photographs of your very own Star Wars figures that you own, and you take a photograph, Disney will still make a claim on that.
Yes.
It's obscene.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Yeah.
Yeah. Damien says, absolutely, and it's in reference to the Action Force figures. Yeah, for sure. Hey, Bobby L. Collins, good to see you. McFarlane Batman 66 figures don't come with any accessories like batarangs, weapons, surfboards, or shark repellents. Money, 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 money. Yeah, although interestingly enough, the leaked images of the upcoming wave, which I think from memory was Two-Face, King Tut, and the pink-cowled Batman, those ones do have accessories and not those stupid text bubbles. So maybe McFarlane have learned. But I think McFarlane have some sort of problem, or not necessarily a problem, but they don't put weapons with their action figures for some reason, especially guns, apparently. So who knows? And that's the most recent code there. Also, anyone that's tried the codes, let us know how you've got on, please. Boba Fan, how about a left arm for a vintage EV99? Yes.
Yeah. I think I might have a model of that, actually.
Yeah.
I do have some right arms for Luke and Vader and Obi-Wan, the vintage, so you don't have to, that stupid little...
Yeah.
I've replaced some of those.
Nice. Seth again says, the M3 Max printer might be my next printer. Working with a Photon till now, I have a good experience with the Anycubic. It would, if you would advise a resin printer to a newcomer, which would it be?
A brand new. I would start off with the Anycubic Photon series. It's inexpensive, and it introduces you into the world of 3D printing, and then upscale from there. I'm trying to think of another brand. I think Saturn is a good one. They make some good stuff. I follow a YouTuber by Uncle Jesse, and he does a lot of 3D printing stuff. But as far as getting your feet wet, I would start off with the Photon from Anycubic. Do the 4K, because the 4K is high quality and it's not much more. And then once you get more experienced, then getting the bigger ones. But yeah, I love my M3 Max. It's huge, and it gives me a lot more flexibility of printing things.
Nice. So before we get to Ben's comment, I'm going to put up another code for you all. So this is code number 3 again, 8DKJY8. Next one, and again these codes, all 9 codes will be valid for the duration of this stream. But code number 4. AK38C9. So that's the latest one, and I will attempt to put that into the chat. And don't forget, these codes could be worth up to 100% off a single purchase. Now, Ben asks, Scott, which 3D software do you or the designers use for creating the models, and what file type do the printers read?
I'm not 100% which ones they use. I know that I forget the name, what they design in. It's the popular one. I'm drawing a blank, to be honest with you. But as far as on my end, I use Lecce to do all my slicing and and putting together the way the figure's going to print. And as far as the file type, that particular slicing program will basically put any printer that you have into this program, and it automatically assign that file type for that printer. So, like I said, I have 3 different types of printers. Photon Mono, the Photon at 4K, and the M3 Max. And in that slicing program, I just choose which printer I want it to print on, and it gives me the file type for that printer. So, and I put it on the flash drive and stick it in the side.
So, just out of curiosity, what would be the single biggest piece you could print in one go? Like, I'm thinking about Stormtrooper helmets. Is that feasible to do a one-piece print of a helmet?
I would say no. You would have to split it in half, only because even with the M3 Max, the build plate is this wide by this big, so it's pretty good size, but it's not big enough. So you would split that in half. So you can do a front half, back half. It'll print the whole thing.
Okay.
So pieces.
Sounds cool. Because I've seen videos of guys printing out, life-size R2D2 units, but that was very many sort of small parts glued together.
And a lot of those, they use FDM printers for those.
Right.
It's less expensive to do.
Yeah.
And they have the time to sand, and they can glue everything together.
Yeah. So Gerard says, super informative, guys. Anyone on the fence when it comes to 3D printing should be watching right now. Yeah, absolutely. Life-size Leia, maybe?
There you go.
Thanks for the copyright questions. Yeah, it's a tough one. You just never know when someone's going to go after you.
Right. And my biggest fear is the fan strike back is causing so much headaches, and they're putting too much spotlight on the customizing community.
Yeah.
And that might draw some unwanted attention towards us.
In fact, speaking of that, I've still not followed up on where things stand with those 12 figures. I paid for those, October of 2019. So here we are, over 3 years later.
The other day I had pulled up that list, and here's a funny story.
Yeah.
When I first started my custom card backs, and I was doing it for myself, then I decided to do for other people. And I was contacted by Chris Cron, and he asked me to design the card backs for those particular figures.
Yeah.
And so I did. I did all the artwork for him, and he promised me in return. He paid me a decent amount, but not that good. But he promised me I would get a full set of those figures as well. The only one I did get was Thrawn. He did send me a Thrawn, but so I did all the original artwork for those figures. So, and then obviously as I got more into this customizing, and I learned more about the fan strike back and all that, and so but I did, like I said, I did look up those the other day, and there's a guy that has made some of those figures, 3D models figures. So I was thinking about getting those, making those, and set them as a set, and make them as least expensive as I could to help those that have purchased those that never got them.
Yeah, it's the whole thing just stinks. But what really blew my mind was when, of all the people to send a subpar bantha to, they sent it to Michael French.
Right.
Why? Like, do they genuinely believe that was a good product? Because I can't in my wildest imagination think anyone would think that was acceptable.
Right.
With those bungee cords and.
Did you get a chance to see the one we've made?
Yes.
Yeah, it has the articulate legs and the peg in the holes and everything. So
yeah,
but it's a lot better looking than theirs. I couldn't believe when that came out.
But the other thing is, though, they've still been selling. I believe they've been selling multi-packs of some of the figures that people like me have paid for and still haven't received. Those Rebel Fleet Troopers and the sand stormtroopers, they've been going out to customers. Like, where's mine?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I make pauldrons for the vintage stormtroopers.
Right.
so that way you don't have to buy a specific.
Yeah. Yeah. So Damien is saying, "All hail the Baron." That's Baron Ironblood from Action Force. Gerard, you naughty boy. So, well, boys will be boys. But would you do Red Dwarf?
I'll look into it. I wrote it down here. I wrote down that and the Baron Ironblood from Red Shadows and Palatoy Action Force. I've been making notes.
Yeah,
That's what we're going on.
right.
So I'll definitely look into it.
And again, that was the most recent code there. Damien asks, with the exception of the color of the uniform, faceplate, and electronic box on the back of the helmet, the Red Shadows were fitted with World War II German army uniforms, webbing, and weapons. Oh yeah, weren't they just a repaint of the Action Force German troopers that came in the first wave of Action Force? I think maybe. Mark says, can you 3D scan for new models or just create or use templates?
My guys just start from scratch. They'll take, like for instance, the next figure tomorrow we're releasing. Can't believe it. I'm drawing a blank. Floyd Malloy. He's coming out tomorrow.
Right.
The next one is going to be Bruno Shepard. So I have a figure. So I took a whole bunch of different photos, measurements, and high detailed information, and I sent it all off to Jorge, and he's going to be working on that. So he does it all from the visual, and he takes it and just models it all together. So, but 3D scanning, there's still a lot of improvement that needs to happen from a non-corporate type of deal.
Yeah. Mark again says, hope the corporations don't push to limit home users' access to 3D printers to monopolize their markets.
Right.
Yeah. Now, whilst it didn't interest me, I saw some people had used the Hasbro, create your own figure thing.
I saw that.
And the results are quite awful, to be honest.
They were.
Yeah.
I had Jorge actually did a 3D model of my head. I sent him some pictures.
Oh, all right.
And so he did a model of my head. I put it on a Boba Fett body. So it looked pretty good. A lot better than what they were sending.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Yeah. So obviously, if Hasbro are putting out that sort of crap,
right.
It may well be down to people like yourself to give people what they really want or expect from such a purchase. Gotta go, guys. Movie time with the family. We'll catch up later. Thanks so much. And everyone have
a good one.
Okay, thanks, Gerard. Awesome. Damien, with the exception of hang on, we just got that. Maybe it's been, did I do that twice? No, it's there. Okay. Yes, Damien, the Red Shadows were basically just repaints of the German trooper, I believe. UK buyers would love Only Fools and Horses, the Young Ones figures, plus Bottom. Those are all UK comedy shows.
Oh, really?
So Only Fools and Horses, the Young Ones, and Bottom, Eddie and Richie. That would be great. Maybe Paul Daniels' magic show with the lovely Debbie McGee. You're pushing it now, Max. Paul Daniels was this TV magician who had a rather lovely wife, Debbie McGee. But yeah, I mean, I guess the options are endless when it comes to these things.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Jason says, would you do a line of the TV show V? Sci-fi, as I would love to see some of them figures. Yeah, V is
good. Yeah, I did love V. Yeah.
Ben says, night to Gerard. So Seth again says, Scott, are you a Back to the Future fan? The current 3.75 figure line by Super 7 could use a lot of extra characters. It would never go, if you would ever go there, I made printable CAD models of several 2015 vehicles.
Nice. Oh, I'm a huge Back to the Future fan. I used to live in Orlando, Florida, and used to go to Universal. I used to work at Universal Studios, and Back to the Future ride was one of my favorite rides.
Yeah.
But yeah, Back to the Future.
Yep. And then Damien is saying, indeed, the Red Shadow figure was a repaint, a retool of the Wave 1 German Stormtrooper. And Mark says last Starfighter figures would be awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So here we are at 1 hour 6. So let's get another code on the go. So we're up to number 5. So code T2DUJY. And again, I will post that into the chat if you wish just to copy and paste. And also, if you do jump out to go back or to go to the CFCB store, be sure to come back and tell us how you got on using these codes. Because again, I don't know what each code relates to. And there's my comment. So T2DUJY. So I'm trying to think. So you said that you were designers had began working on possibly a Thunderhawk.
Correct, Dustin. Yeah.
Right. And obviously, I just recently showcased Stan Solo's Ubrikian 9000, which is fantastic.
I think it's fantastic. Yeah.
Are there any vehicles from the Star Wars universe that come to your mind of something that you would like to make?
Not off the top of my head, but I would love to make more Star Wars vehicles. I enjoyed making the Bantha. That was fun. And but yeah, I mean, I'm open to ideas. Mini rigs like he did. Like I said, I can't compete with his quality because he's fantastic, but I could do it on a smaller type scale.
And also, as well, bearing in mind that Kenner's mini rigs were just purely thought up vehicles which never actually appeared in the movies.
Yeah.
So if you so wish, you could design some crazy little miniature thing that I'm sure people would snap up.
It's a good idea.
So on the subject of Stancil, so clearly Chris has access to these factories in China. If you were to get to the point where you could do that, would you be comfortable, or do you like the fact that you sort of kind of have everything in-house and you can supervise it yourself?
I am a control freak, so I do like to be hands-on, but if I could use a factory like his, because obviously he has a lot of quality control, if they can match the quality control that I like, obviously that he does, then I would be fine, send over designs and let them do it. But that would be fun, but I like to work with my hands, and I like to,
Right.
I have talked with Chris, and I think I mentioned before, he offered to set me up, but the funds is something I got to raise. So,
yeah, I mean, obviously, those of us that simply buy toys as opposed to make toys don't realize just how much it costs to get started.
Right.
So those steel molds, I believe, are like $5,000 for one figure.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And you got him. He's pretty smart too. He kind of picks on what items that he knows he can get his return on investment for.
Yeah.
So he doesn't just willy-nilly make, random stuff.
Right.
So he's pretty smart.
And then, of course, in addition to the $5,000 outlay for the mold, you then have factory set minimum orders.
Mm-hmm.
And you could, if you pick the wrong figure, you could potentially be sitting on a stockpile of like 1,000 action figures that no one wants.
Absolutely. And then you'll be the next Lando on the shelf.
Yeah. Yeah. Funny you should say that. Obviously, where I live, there's not a whole lot of places that sell Star Wars toys, but there's a Walgreens close by. And they must have got a case of Black Series the other week. And they initially put out the Darth Vader and Obi-Wan Kenobi from the recent TV show. And they were there for about a day. And then the next day, they put out two of these, I forget what they're called now. Is it the Inquisitor?
Mm-hmm. The Inquisitors, yeah.
Yeah. I don't even know the character's name, but two of them have been sitting on the shelf for over a week now.
Right. Yeah, they're missing the mark on a lot of that stuff. They're getting pretty smart to start doing the retro style figures. And, and they're hitting a lot of the customizers that do Star Wars.
Mhm.
they're starting to hit back at them because they do random stuff, but because retro is what everybody wants. Not everybody,
Yeah.
likes the new designs of the figures. They like the old
Yeah.
fly POAs.
Um, but what kind of irks me is that they've kind of misused the retro line. So we
Hmm.
had two waves of Book of Boba Fett. No, sorry. Or yes, was it two waves?
Yeah, I
No,
believe so.
Mandalorian. I apologize.
Oh,
Mandalorian got two waves.
yes, yes. I have a lot of them right there.
Um, am I right in saying there was no Book of Boba Fett, or was there?
They
No, there
did
was.
some Book of Boba Fett, but I think they called it the Mandalorian.
Yeah, it was Mandalorian,
Yeah,
and then they did the Kenobi
right,
series. But then on the side, with very little fanfare, they've been doing the bounty hunters from Empire Strikes Back in 2 packs,
right. Yeah,
which are fantastic.
yeah,
Now, for me, rather than give us Book of Boba Fett and Obi-Wan Kenobi figures, just stick to the classic figures,
right.
fill out the whole line.
Yeah, they
People
could
would buy
redo.
those up.
They'll make a fortune, and you
Yeah,
see how fast they sell out of the like the 2 packs. They
yeah,
go quick. Everybody wants them. They
yeah.
don't want the new stuff.
No, and I even said when I was looking at Stan Solo's speeder that if Retro Collection gave us a Greedo, I'd buy it in a second
Right,
to have an extra one to put inside that speeder. And as it is, even the Return of the Jedi figures coming out next year, I guess they're sort of sticking to their plan where they must have Han, Luke, Leia, and I guess Lando Calrissian have to be represented.
right,
And as a result, it's kind of limited what they've done. So for me, had they offered us Emperor's Royal Guard, I would
right,
have bought maybe 4 of those,
right. Absolutely.
because as it is, I actually have, I believe, 10 of the first wave stormtroopers sitting in a box somewhere, still carded, because my plan eventually, when I get a place or when we move to have a nice room, I want a nice display with Vader the Emperor
Right.
surrounded by stormtroopers. And if they'd done the Royal Guard, I would have snapped those up. As it is, I think I pre-ordered 2 of the Biker Scouts because I have a couple of Kenner speeder bikes.
Yeah.
Those will go with that. But
Biker Scout's my favorite one of the Empire Strikes Back. I mean, the
yeah,
Return of the Jedi. I apologize.
yeah. But again, though, all they had to do was tell us in advance, look, as part of Retro Collection, we're going to redo all the figures you enjoyed as kids. Sit back, relax, enjoy the ride. But instead, they've done bits here, bits there.
Right.
They've done figures that were never released, 40 years ago. These are brand new characters.
Right.
Yeah, I just wish they would sort of focus more on where people like us are, which is we don't want new characters. We want what we liked.
And the way they price them, it's people like us that can afford them.
Yeah.
They want them. And kids don't really want to play with them. And
No.
parents don't want to pay $25 or $20 for a figure that you're going to destroy. That.
Yeah. So again, Seth is now saying Back to the Future 2015 vehicles as a toy line. Funky flying cars with LEDs and folding wheels. Griff's gang with their hoverboards, to name just a few wild ideas.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. And again, just going back to what Hasbro are doing, not that it's of any of my interest, but I see they have announced they're doing the Endor bunker.
Oh, I did see that. Yeah.
And from what I could see by the reaction online, people think it sucks.
Right.
These are the things that people like me, had it been done right, would probably end up buying.
Right.
As it is, it's like was it a $60 or $90 shell?
Yeah.
Basically with a couple of sliding doors.
Yeah, there's not much inside. If they would have been able to where you can split it in half and open it up and have all the corridors that were inside, that would be one thing.
Yeah, I mean, also speaking of corridors, that play set they did for the Tantive 4, which was like basically, what's that? Half a corridor.
Right.
But they show you on the pictures this amazing set, but you have to buy 4 of the damn things to make that work.
That and what was it? The
Or the bridge.
yeah, the bridge and the where Han gets in Empire Strikes Back, where he gets
Yeah.
frozen in carbonite. You have to buy like 4 of them to make the one. It's like
Yeah.
what, $90 a piece.
Nah.
It's like, oh, come on.
It's ridiculous. They really are.
Yeah.
But again, though, thankfully, and especially for me in terms of masks, we've got you doing this. You and Chris are doing Star Wars things. Without the custom makers out there, I wouldn't be still collecting Star Wars figures because I've got all the ones I need from back in the day.
Right.
And the modern stuff really doesn't interest me. So the fact that there are still continually figures coming out that really should have been out, 3 decades or 4 decades ago at this point, it's wonderful. And as far as I'm concerned, Hasbro can do one because there's nothing that they're putting out aside from Retro Collection that is of any interest to me.
Right. I agree. I look for the original trilogy.
Yeah.
Figures and characters and stuff. I'm not big on, especially the last sequels. I wish they wouldn't have made those.
No. And not only that, though, another thing that Hasbro seem very stuck on are their repaints of, I guess they're called clone troopers.
Mm-hmm.
I hated that design because it wasn't my stormtrooper.
Right. Yeah.
I just cannot accept the way these clone troopers look. But my God, do Hasbro put those out with different colors on them and stuff?
Right.
Ben is saying some great suggestions for possible figure lines in the chat here. So yes, everyone in the chat, post what you would like or what is your dream line of figures to be made.
And in fact, I talked to Jorge, one of my designers, and if someone wants to have a figure made, instead of buying it directly from me and paying all those extra fees, they can go right to him. They'll pay him. He can design everything, and then he can send the models to me, and I can make them for the customer or the viewer. I'll take care of that part. So if they want to, and his contact is on my website under 3D designers.
Okay. Let's put out another code here. So we're up to, this will be number 6. So 8x5 ppm. And again, I'll put it into the chat. Let me just score it off my list here. So this again, I don't know if anyone has scored the 100% off one figure yet, but if you have done, please do let us know. There we go. So code 8x5 ppm, and there we are if you wish to copy and paste that.
I can say that one of those codes that you announced is the 100% off.
Oh, already? Okay, so nice. Seth asked, would you sell just the 3D files?
No, I don't. No. I don't sell the files.
Right.
In fact, I have contracts with my guys that they're not allowed to. I can't give away or sell. It's an equal partnership, so we set the agreement up to where we both own equal rights to the 3D files. So we have to be in agreement to get rid of them or sell them. So, and they can't sell or disperse them, and I can't sell or disperse. So it's a check and balances that way. We're both protected.
Yeah, that sounds pretty fair. So I'm going to get the ball rolling. So please, everyone who's watching, please comment what would you like to see made as action figures, and it can be the most ridiculous suggestions.
Right? Never know.
Ever. I'm trying to think here.
Speaking of ridiculous, I made Jenny from Tommy Two Tones. 8675309. I made one of those figures. So you never know what might come out.
Yeah. This just came into my head this very second. How would it be for a lifelike 3.75, but based on the Lego minifigure classic Spacemen?
That's doable.
Yeah, because that's a pretty bog standard design. But then again, part of the magic of Lego is the minifigures. So to have it sort of humanized might not. You know
Right.
what? That's a bad idea. It just came into my head. I just put it out there. But
I do have a Boba Fett Lego
uh-huh.
design. I was thinking about making a big, it looks like a
Yeah.
little minifig, but I was going to make it about a 12-inch. I did make a 12-inch mat tracker. I think I showed you.
Yeah.
I sent that off to matttracker.com, and he's going to do a review on that.
Right.
So,
but again, though, my biggest worry would be this: if there were potential copyright infringements, because I would hate for everything to get shut down.
yeah, I think Super 7, they're the ones that watch everything the most.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah, they're the ones you got to watch out for, because they have leased and purchased licensing rights to a lot of the crazy stuff.
Yeah.
And that's why you see so many random things. They just kind of go out there and grab them. And if you get, like I said, I don't think I'm big enough for them to be on their radar, but
Right.
they have gone after some people that have made figures that like Ninja Turtles is one of them.
Mm-hmm.
They have the rights to produce those figures, but if it looks similar, they'll go after them. So
yeah, but so far you've managed to avoid the wrath of the Michael Jackson estate. I see.
Right? Yeah. Fortunately,
because but then again, aside from those, I guess there were 12-inch dolls back in the day of Michael Jackson, but
yeah,
there were never any action figures. Are there any other sort of musicians that come to mind that you'd like to make?
Some I would like to do some Kiss figures, but they're I don't want to.
No,
they have a lot of feelers out there.
Oh yeah,
so I don't want to get hammered by them. There's some of the more popular ones, like maybe Prince or Madonna, or some of the more iconic ones, but Michael Jackson was the biggest one. I've sold several of him. I didn't think I'd sell any.
Right.
But yeah, people have bought some of the Michael Jackson figures, so that was cool.
Nice. Seth again saying, "Would you?" We got that one. Sorry. Treated or Battlestar Galactica, Goonies, or Planet of the Apes.
I have seen Battlestar Galactica. I want to do those. Goonies I haven't seen. The Planet of the Apes I haven't seen. Yeah. But Battlestar Galactica, they did a line back in the 80s, and I have those on my list to kind of replicate those a little bit. But Buck Rogers was another one. I had some of those figures. They still have the guns, and but Goonies is definitely one I would love to do. Planet of the Apes as well.
Now, you previously mentioned earlier that you do have A-Team in the pipeline.
Right.
Now, are those brand new designs, or are they based on those Galoob figures?
It's on the list, but yes, both. They're going to be a new design in the 5 POA, and they're going to be replicates of the original figures from back in the day. Like remember the Knight Rider, the Michael Knight, the 6-inch one? We're doing one in a 3.5 inch.
Right.
What we want to do is because when I was a kid, and I'm sure you were too, when you had figures that weren't the same size, they were random, like Mask or Michael Knight and stuff like that. It's like they didn't quite fit in. I always had to make my Mask figures the kids.
Yeah.
They were the children of the, because they were so small.
Yeah.
So I always wanted the same size.
Because I'm just thinking about so Galoob did the two versions. They did those, I guess, 5.5-inch figures, which I loved.
Yeah,
but the smaller ones, they just wore these like generic jumpsuits.
Right.
But are you going to do the smaller figures with typical A-Team costumes as opposed to those jumpsuits?
Right. Typical costumes.
Yeah,
absolutely. I want to represent what they actually look like, and not what the toy that was shoved out there.
And
like I just sold out the Greatest American Hero. We made those lines. I don't know if you remember Mecco, I think. before they went out of business initially.
Mhm.
They put out Ralph and Bill,
Right.
and they only put out so many. I think they came in with the Volt.
Figures, instruments included. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, there are so many classic bands that could benefit from figures.
Oh yeah, I could do a Queen set. That'd be fun.
Oh yeah, definitely. And Tree says Eddie Van Halen would be
Oh
good.
yeah, with that classic. Maybe do that with the classic logo in the back.
Yeah, yeah. And Juan has said Lego made a line of 3.75-inch figures called Technic Men with 13 POA at the end of the 80s. Yes, I did have one, I think, of those. Perhaps it can be done, but with 5 POA. Yeah, but those were like basically human looking figures. Whereas for me, the classic Lego spaceman I had as a kid, you know what? Rather than make it human, just an upscaled Lego minifigure would be a good one, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm guessing off the top of my head, a normal minifigure is what, maybe 1.5 inches in height. So
Right.
if it were to be, 3.75, that might be cool. So there's no more suggestions. Please keep the suggestions coming in, and we're going to produce another code. So we're up to number 7. So this time we have HX9E6C, which I will just post. And again, these are mysteries. I don't know what they are, but as Scott just alluded to, the big one has been previously announced. So if anyone has gone to the CFCB website, please do let us know how you got on. Okay, we're up to date. So going forward, what would be your dream line to work on?
Oh man. I guess right now is Mask. I mean, I love the Mask and Star Wars, but ones I like they already made and I already had as a kid. So
yeah.
But I like, so as far as a line, Mask. I always loved the vehicles and the characters. And I only had a few vehicles when I was a kid from the first series, and then I got some of the double packs like you were talking about.
Right. Yeah. And that's the other thing as well. Like, I remember seeing a comment somewhere quite recently where you had announced, I guess it was the 6-inch Mat Tracker, and someone wrote a comment, "Oh, it's just an upscaled version." Like, duh, that's what these are.
Right. Yeah.
And then I think on one of my videos, someone pointed out, "Oh, but the face isn't painted." I'm like, yeah, because the originals didn't have painted faces either.
Right.
That's the whole point. That's what made Mask different.
Yeah.
It made
I
it
think
quite unique.
Miles Mayhem's the only one that had anything on his face. He had eyebrows.
Yeah.
And he was the only one.
Or didn't what's his name? Sly Rax have a goatee? And
he had a goatee. Yeah, he had a goatee. And so did Alex.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But as far as eyes or eyebrows, he's the only one that had an eyebrow.
Yeah.
But I did make a Mat Tracker the other day that I put eyes on. It looked pretty cool. I'll show you if you want to see it.
All right, yeah.
I'll grab it.
Please. In fact, before we do that, I'm just going to quickly take a short. I'll be right back in about 2 minutes. So hang tight. I'm going to put this holding screen up. Scott, I'll be right back.
Okay.
I do apologize for that there. So,
Yeah, no
Scott,
worries.
you're going to show us.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, with eyes. Yeah.
Yeah, I did the eyes, eyebrows. I don't know why it's not focusing.
Yeah.
I did a little more of the painting, the detail of the
Right.
like
Yeah.
he had.
That looks pretty cool.
So I did that. I was like, I don't know if anybody would be interested in one of those or not, but
Yeah, I'm sure it's like a nice sort of variant on the normal. So Seth is saying a nice Johnny Five figure from Short Circuit.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that I do have that one written down. Johnny Five.
Okay.
Johnny
Yeah.
Five is alive.
Juan's got a great one here. Monkey Magic. Now, did you ever see Monkey Magic?
Mm-mm.
So it was a Japanese show, I'm guessing, 60s, 70s, that was shown in the UK in the 80s. Yeah, there also some pretty outstanding characters. There was Monkey, who was the main character. There was Piggy, who obviously was like a half pig, half human. And this it was a very weird sort of kung fu type TV show. But yeah, Monkey Magic, that's a good choice there, Juan.
Okay, I'll look that one up.
Yeah. Only Fools and Horses,
Yeah,
Dell and Rodney with Trigger and Boyce. Again, that's the UK comedy.
And the young ones.
Yeah, Young Ones. And the other one, I think, was Bottom, which was the same actor whose name escapes me right now. Aiden, is it Aiden somebody? I forget. Juan asks, is there a Doctor Who figure in 3.75? I don't know.
Good question. I don't know. I can look into that.
I mean, honestly, if you were to break things down, there are so many franchises from our childhood that never got figures made.
Right. Absolutely.
The list is just endless. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I mean, there are so many. Obviously, because I grew up in the UK, there are so many sort of random TV personalities that you could make a figure from that I know people would want because it's just so random.
Right.
People in the UK will get this. So you could have like a Philip Schofield sitting in a broom cupboard type thing. It's just so ridiculous, but people would understand it. Seth says a range of 3.75 figures from the original Blade Runner.
Nice.
Deckard, Rachel, Alden, Terrell. Yeah, many. Mark says Adrian Edmondson. So yes, he was in the Young Ones and Bottom, and it was Rick Mile, Adrian Edmondson, the Young Ones, and Bottom. Yes, indeed. Time for another code. And again, just to remind everyone, these codes are valid for the duration of this stream. So if you haven't already done so, please do go to the CFCB website and try your luck and see what code you are using. And there we go. Okay, so we have one more code to go. Juan says UFO and Space 1999. I mean, I'm just thinking back to the things that I enjoyed as a kid. And the first one that springs to mind, which I managed to get one little statue of in Thailand last month, is Battle of the Planets, or Gatchaman, as it was called in Japan. That was the first time I ever saw a toy from that cartoon. And I've not watched that. Honestly, I've not seen Battle of the Planets in at least 35 years. But from memory, I think there were only 4 of them, 4 main characters. If I remember rightly, the one that I got, the white suit, who I think was, what was he called? Was he Mark? Then there was a guy in a black suit, which I think had purple trim. There was the larger guy that wore green, and I'm sure there was a girl. And then there's also the robot that was very much like an R2D2 ripoff. That's something that could possibly be done.
Yeah.
Simply because I don't believe anyone else has done it. So you're not really stepping on anyone else's toes.
One I just thought of. Remember the original Voltron?
Mm-hmm.
And you had the little characters that went in with the
Right.
maybe do a larger scale version of the Voltron figures. You know,
Yeah.
different colors.
Yeah. I've just drawn a blank on what was the name of the kid in Transformers, but his dad was what, Sparkplug.
Yeah.
So those two, I don't think they ever got
Mm-mm.
figures that fitted in with the G1 Transformers. What was the kid's name? Oh,
I don't recall.
anyone in the chat, please do let me know about the name of that kid in G1 cartoon. Anyway, Juan says Japanese animation, Captain Future characters. I don't even know Captain Future, to be honest. Yes, Dean, there is no 5 POA Gatchaman figure. So Gatchaman, Battle of the Planets, none of those figures were made. Yeah, that would probably be my first pick, I think. Battle of the Planets. But again, though, now, here's another question. I'm just looking at some of my vintage Corgi diecast vehicles. We've only discussed action figures. I'm assuming that 3D printing can also print vehicles, like small diecast style vehicles that don't necessarily have to be functioning in as much as the wheels don't need, or for me, the wheels don't need to turn. But are you able to do miniature vehicles that are essentially just models that display as opposed to an actual functioning car?
Yeah. In fact, we can, set up with the metal rod for make the wheels like the bigger ones. In fact, the gentleman Brian that his Twitter and Instagram is at Whack Artwork. He's the one doing all the artwork for the Mask 6-inch figures.
All right.
And we're going to work with him, and we're kind of taking Mask into present day almost. We're going to come up with a figure line, basically with like Scott Tracker as the adult taking over for Matt Tracker.
Right.
And we're going to come up with vehicles. And so we're going to have larger vehicles like a display for, go with them. Like we have the 2019 Camaro with the wings up. So we're doing modern vehicles. So we're going to have figures based on that, but they're still going to and he's going to be drawing the cartoons for them and comics. And he's doing the comics drawings for them and all that. And we're going to, it's all going to be 80s based.
Yeah.
Nothing dark and like, how they're doing Transformers, but we're keeping it 80s retro style.
Nice.
So the extension of, so that's going to be so out this year.
Another one, what about a 3.75-inch line of Robocop 2? The Kane robot, very challenging design. ED209, Dick Jones, the Robocop 2 prototypes. Oh, that's a lot there, but yeah. Gino asks about Star Blazers. Yes, Ben's answered my question here. So, Witwiki family. So it was Sparkplug, Spike. Spike was the one I was missing. Yes, Spike and Daniel.
Okay, Witwiki. That's right.
So Spike was the kid who always used to ride in Bumblebee, and Sparkplug was his dad, I think. He was like the sort of mechanic type. So I don't believe, I could be wrong, but I don't think there were ever any figures made for those characters.
I don't think there was. I think it was just the Transformers in the G1 series.
Yeah. Again, though, with Transformers, like, I find it hard to collect beyond anything that I remembered as a kid. So for me, there are so many waves of Transformers that are just of no interest to me because I did not remember seeing them when I was growing up. which is why I really do stick to what I remember as a kid. And that's why things like Black Series and
Right.
the vintage collection don't really appeal to me, because it has no connection. I have no connection to it. I only have connection to what I remembered as a kid. But if you are making figures of franchises that I remembered as a kid, that's a whole
Right.
different story. I'm all on board with that.
Yeah, that's what I look at. I'm not
Yeah.
big on franchises from today's age,
No.
but I'm more the '80s guy.
Yeah.
I listen to '80s music.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh yeah.
in my opinion, the '80s were the best decade. Otherwise, why would they
Yeah.
recreate the movies that from back then?
Mhm.
Redo TV shows like MacGyver. Oh, MacGyver was not MacGyver, but Magna PI was one of my on my
Oh,
list.
yeah.
They redid Magna PI. They're redoing
Yeah.
Quantum Leap. I mean, and the
Yeah.
music and the movies. Why would they
Well, that's the thing as
that
well.
was the best decade.
I think I touched on this on a recent live stream, where I think the 80s were the best because technology was good and it was
Mhm.
exciting, but it wasn't so amazing that it made us stay indoors for hours.
Right.
So we got to play a bit of video game, but still enjoyed going outside, playing in the dirt, playing on BMXs,
Yeah.
playing with action figures. Prior to the 80s, they only had the physical toys. There was no technology.
Right.
In the 90s, that was when it began to go focused on technology. And after the 90s, forget it. It was like cell phones all the
Right.
way. So
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
80s was the prime decade for a bit of both.
Yeah.
And
The home technology was in its infancy.
yeah,
I remember playing, getting my Nintendo and playing Mario Brothers. It didn't have a memory card, so you just had to leave it on and hope you didn't
right.
lose power until you
Yeah,
could save the princess.
yeah.
you know?
And like I remember I had my Astro Wars video game that it was fun to play, but it wasn't so great that I would spend the whole day playing it. So I'd play it for maybe an hour, put that away, jump on the BMX, drive around in the dirt, do some stunts, come back, play with Action Man or play with the Star Wars toys, and just repeat the whole process again the following day.
Right. Oh, yeah.
But nowadays, I see kids as young as 3 years old sitting in the pram playing with a cell phone,
Right.
and that's all they're going to know. They'll never know the joys of playing with actual tactile toys.
Yeah. Real figures that, you could smack against each other and they would
Yeah.
still be, if you took the toys from today and you used and abused like we did back in the 80s,
Right.
they'd break and fall apart.
Yeah, exactly.
Those things were built to last.
Yeah. Max Video says the inner space with Dennis Quaid and the round vehicle would be incredible. So there's another one. Coglin's Law is here. Good to see you. Juan says Captain Future characters were created by Leiji Matsumoto, the creator of Star Blazers. Yamato. Interesting. Quantum Leap figures. There we go.
Yeah.
Airwolf 3.75.
Oh, Airwolf. Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. Did someone mention Battlestar Galactica or Buck Rogers? Yeah, those came up. Those are good suggestions.
Mm-hmm.
Before we get to Ben, we're going to release this last final code. So this is number 9. Again, ignore code 9 dash. The code is VBBPH7. And just to clarify, I will put that in the chat to allow you to copy and paste if you so wish. And again, this is the final code. We have released all the codes. As I said, anything from 10% off to 100% off if you use these codes during the duration of this stream, which we are getting close to the end of. Ben, with the next comment, says, I like the scale conversion idea. 3.75 Motu.
Oh, yeah.
Or
For
Ghostbusters might look cool. Yep. And it always bugged me that the Marvel and DC figures were 4-inch or so and didn't fit with Star Wars, G.I. Joe, etc. Good point.
Now, the Master Universe, do you make them look 10-ish? or do you keep them,
Yeah.
the way they look just scaled down? So
Yeah.
that's a big dilemma there.
Well, I think if you were to ask me for one opinion, I would say keep them bulky but scaled
Right.
down in proportion, just because that's how we expect to see a Masters of the Universe figure. Max Video says a Rocky 3.75, yeah,
Oh, there you go. Yeah, Rocky's
or
good.
Highlander.
Yeah, I like
Wow,
Highlander.
all the suggestions are coming out now.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
Steve Austin and the Bionic Woman,
Oh
Oscar
yeah.
Goldman and the $6 million anyway. So yeah, Maskatron. Yeah, we need a mask. Yeah, so we need Steve Austin, Maskatron. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a great one. In fact, I think someone did the $6 million man recently that I passed on because it just didn't look right to me. That might have been. Would that have been Figures Toy Company possibly? I'm not sure.
An action figure style? I haven't seen an act. I've seen the bigger ones. That
Yeah, or it may even have been Super 7. I really don't remember, but it just wasn't quite to my liking. So I just
right,
because for me it's all about those vintage Kenners, and
right.
those things were, in fact, I think they were beyond 12 inches. They might have been like 14 inches, maybe. I could be wrong, of course.
I did a scaled down version of the Thundercats.
Oh, okay,
This
nice.
is a 3 point.
Let me bring that up on the large screen.
Here it is.
Oh, there we go.
So I redid the card back to look like the original.
Uh-huh. Oh, nice.
But yeah, it's in the 3.5 inch, 3.75 inch scale.
I like that idea. And there was me just giving you guys the last code. So we've done all 9 codes were released. So I was worried I was going to mess this up, but thankfully I got through all 9 codes released within the duration of the stream. So I give myself a pat on the back for that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Mysterious Cities of Gold and Ulysses 31 at 3.75 was still like crazy in Europe. Yeah, that was a big cartoon in the UK and Europe. Ulysses. Yeah, good shout there. Juan says Super 7 did release Motu and Rocky in 3.75. Also, the Rocky figures a few years ago. Interesting.
Have to look them up. Yeah.
I got to be honest, Super 7, I love what they do for the musical characters, but I simply cannot keep up with what they're doing. There's just far too much getting released.
Right. I like the fact that they're bringing G.I. Joe, but I don't like the fact that it doesn't look. I don't know.
Yeah.
It doesn't give me the same feelings as.
Yeah. And obviously, if I were to have collected, I would have collected their G1s.
Right.
But the fact that they are non-transforming is a bit of an issue for me.
Right.
I do like the fact that the robots are 3.75 inch scaled, but
I made
for
one
for like $20,
yeah.
I want a bit more for my money than that. There we go.
Yeah, I made one of these.
Uh-huh.
This is one I did here.
Oh, nice.
Made it look just like the original.
Excellent
packaging.
Yeah. That's there are some toys that work as just action figures, but to me, Transformers is not really one, because part of the whole enjoyment of a Transformer was doing the transformation.
Exactly.
Speaking of which, I guess it was 2 nights ago, I picked up my Megatron, which I have them all displayed in robot mode. Picked up Megatron, and for the life of me, could not remember how to transform the damn thing without breaking it. So I thought, forget it, I'll put this back on the shelf. And
that was always an odd one to me, because it was weird looking when it was a gun, and it would just I didn't understand it, but
it really was the worst of the first wave.
Yeah, it was just the weirdest looking.
Yeah. I mean, it just looks ridiculous in robot mode.
Right.
And I didn't like the fact that, aside from Soundwave, all the other Transformers transformed into vehicles that you could play with against each other. And then you had this handgun and a
Right.
Walkman.
Right.
But to be fair, Soundwave was cool as hell. And
It was.
in fact, that so when I put Megatron back, I said, "Nah, I'm not going to break this." I put him back. I took down Soundwave and put him back into Walkman form, and even took the blasters off, put them into batteries, and put them in the back. This was one of the coolest things I've ever seen.
Right.
It was cool back then. It's still
Yeah.
cool to this day. Such an amazing design.
And the cassettes that
Yeah.
fell into with a dog or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love those.
And that's the thing. The fact that they even went as far as doing those micro cassettes that would transform. Fantastic line. Really was. Black Star in 3.75.
I do remember right now down before, not today.
Coughlin's Law, he's late in, that's okay. But has anyone asked about Last Starfighter figures and Gunship?
Oh. No, not yet.
Yeah. Gino asks about the Star Trek Filmation. Huh.
I think Super 7 did some recently of Star Trek.
Yeah. But not only that, haven't Playmates got back on the scene with Star Trek?
Yeah.
Yeah. I actually initially pre-ordered everything they announced. And then I sat back and says, wait a minute. Nah. Cancel, because I've got I've got the bridge crew from the original series from Playmates in the sort of 9-inch dolls and the 4-inch figures. That's all I need, because for me, much like Star Wars, I only collect Star Wars items from the first 3 movies. That's it.
Yeah, same here.
No prequel, no sequel. Star Trek. Now, as much as I loved Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, and Voyager, I only collect from the original series with those classic, gold, blue, and red uniforms. So when I saw that Playmates were doing, I guess it was Wrath of Khan was the original series part of things, and I guess they did some Next Generation. But then they went and did Star Trek Discovery that I don't think anyone actually watched. And they were making figures from that series. I thought, nah, not interested. So I just canceled everything. Beautiful card back of the Thundercats figure. Yeah.
Thank you.
Nice one. Yeah, thanks. Was that a laser print?
For the card back?
Yeah.
No, I did that all by hand.
Oh.
And I recreated everything in Photoshop.
Okay.
So I had to go through and redesign redo everything to make it look like the original.
So again, this is a question that might not be appropriate. I don't know anything about the artistic side of computers. I know that with a lot of iPads and tablets these days, you can buy very detailed pens that you can actually draw on. Is it possible to use one of these stylus pens to do a perfect replication of a card back?
You can. I don't. I just use my laptop and a mouse and Photoshop.
Right.
So I just do it the old school way with Photoshop, and I try to draw as much as I can through there. And I'll try to, like the Mask series, the Wave 1, when it came out, it had the 2 figures in Wave 1. They never did, or Series 1. They never did do a Series 2 on the backs. So I took artwork that was out there for Series 1, and I went ahead and had to do a lot of touch-up and redesigning, because most of the images I found were, people had ripped off the stuff, and the original artwork was there. So I had to recreate a lot of that. And for the reverse side too, and for the Series 2 that I'm releasing, I had to make it all a whole new card. And so I took image, like for Floyd Malloy, I took an image from the box and then I took him and I put it on there, and I found a battle scene that was drawn in the same type format. And so I kind of combined them. And on the back, I took photos of the Series 2 figures and put them all on the back, just like the original Series 1. So it looks, so those that are collecting that, it'll kind of fit in with what they're collecting the first one. So.
Sure. Now, Gino asks, Star Wars holiday animated style.
Yeah, I know a guy that has designed a lot of those. He's even the Boba Fett one.
Right. Juan is asking, what about Thunder the Barbarian?
Nice. I'll write that one down. Yep.
Okay. Again, before we head off, please fire in your suggestions for future figure lines in the comments. Max Video asks, true, forgot I own the Super 7 Rocky line, but Ulysses and Mysterious Cities of Gold is money. French love it. And the UK. Absolutely, yeah. Ulysses. Have you ever seen Ulysses? Okay, when we get done, if you go into YouTube and look up the Ulysses theme tune for the cartoon, another classic bit of 80s synth music. It's just fantastic. Okay. And again, I still maintain to this day that Mask had the best ever intro theme.
Oh, of course. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Ben is saying, probably on my own here, but I quite like the Ewok movies. Some of those characters might be cool. We'd add some extra aliens and creatures too. I have to confess, Ben, I have never seen any of the Ewok movies.
They had that little kid with the blonde kid and his,
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Again, I've said this in many a time. Am I actually a Star Wars fan, or am I a fan of my memories of Star Wars? Because I've not seen the Clone Wars cartoon, the Rebels cartoon, the Bad Batch. I think it's a cartoon.
Yeah, it's an animated series.
I've not seen any of those. I've not seen. I didn't watch Andor.
I haven't watched Andor either.
I watched one episode.
Watch the Clone Wars animated and Rebels and Bad Batch. They're actually pretty good.
All right.
Dave Filoni was the one that did those, and he's the one who put the Mandalorian together.
Yeah.
So he's like George Lucas's twin almost.
Okay.
So they're tight.
Okay. I watched one episode of Boba Fett. I did not like it, and I will go back to it. But my point is, to me, Star Wars, for me, is all about my memories of enjoying Star Wars. So I don't want to dilute it any further by watching more crap. Because let's be honest, those sequel movies completely shat on the Star Wars that I remembered as a kid. So
I agree.
I don't want to be further hurt by any more subpar material,
Right. Yeah, I didn't care for the final trilogy.
Oh, no.
It was just rough. No cohesiveness or nothing.
No. And Juan says, this will sound very complex because of the creatures, but how about the Herculoids? I don't even know what that is, to be honest.
I can look it up.
Yeah. And then Boba Fan asks about Centurions. Hang on. What was the one that I liked as a kid very briefly? They were like robots, but they were like see-through plastic. It's a famous line. Someone can maybe remind me. But that's another one that I did like. Wheeled Warriors. Gridrunner Shack asks, there are some Ulysses figures out there, but they are rare and expensive. Agreed, the intro is awesome. So many great hits back then. My favorite was Starfleet X-Bomber. What an awesome tune. Yeah, here we go. Micronauts. That's what I was thinking of, the Micronauts.
Okay, yeah, I remember them.
Those were, I'm guessing, maybe 4.5, maybe 5 inches?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if those... I mean, given that you've done those see-through lightsabers, maybe Micronauts could be an idea. Okay. So hang on, one more from Seth here. A bit different of a suggestion than an action figure, an affordable 1/2 scaled Terminator T800 arm. Doesn't have to be chromed, a nice metallic acrylic finish, and could do the trick.
Yeah, that's how I do have a 3D model of Terminator arm holding, I can't remember something, but yeah, I can do a half scale. And I just figured out how to do chrome without it losing its luster by touch.
Okay.
So that
Yeah.
was a challenge for me to work on too.
Yeah. I mean, I've only dabbled in Chrome the one time where I used that pen. I
Hmm.
forget the name of it now. To do the bumper on one of my mask vehicles.
Right.
But I let that thing sit for almost a month before touching it. I was just so afraid to.
It'll still. I know which one you're talking about. It's
Molotov.
Molotov.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the best chrome out there.
Right.
Unfortunately, no matter how long it sits, once you touch it,
Mm.
it'll lose the luster. I
Yeah.
did find through a lot of experimenting on how on a I'll have to get it. Send it a picture to you. But I
Mhm.
found a coat that you can. It's made for airbrushing, but I brushed it on, and it
Ah,
didn't lose the luster. And
nice.
I let it dry for 24 hours, and I actually touched it, and it was fine.
Oh, excellent.
So I'll have to get a picture and send that to you because you
Thanks.
can brush that on it, and it'll
Yeah.
protect it.
Uh, Juan says that some spaghetti western characters like Clint Eastwood, Lee Van Cleef, Franco Nero, Bud Spencer, and Terence Hill. Ah, yeah. I mean, honestly, at the end of the day, the list is just endless
Oh yeah,
of franchises that never had characters. Uh, oh, for me, it has to be a Lone Ranger. But I think that they did them back in the day in
right.
3.75.
Yeah, I remember I have a Lone Ranger. When you sit him down, he sits on the horse.
Yeah,
Most of the fingers are missing off because his hands were set to hold the
yeah,
revolvers.
yeah. Uh, be very happy to see Hasbro bringing out Dungeons and Dragons cartoon figures. Would like the Vanguard and Dungeon Master set when it becomes available again. Seth now is asking, Chrome is a challenge. The ink of the pens can be used for airbrush. Okay.
I did.
Gino,
Speaking of Dungeons and
yeah.
Dragons,
Hmm.
I did make a 3.75 inch scale of this guy.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's excellent.
So
Yeah.
he was that was from the series they had.
Yeah. So there we go. Gino asked about Dungeons and Dragons. Juan says, Johnny, is that Yima or John Wayne or the other Western movie characters?
Hmm.
Yeah. Um, I mean, Johnny Yuma, the rebel. The thing about action figures is that it's a very specific age group.
Yeah.
It's people typically in their 40s who watched something when they were, 10 years old in the 80s that would want to buy these products. I'm not sure if there were enough kids. I mean, I know that I didn't particularly enjoy Westerns when I was a kid in the 80s because I wanted to see spaceships.
Right.
So for me, Westerns weren't really my thing. I enjoy them now, but I don't know how many people who are still actively collecting action figures would want to buy action figures of Western characters. I could be wrong, of course. Um, there's one more comment coming up. Here we go. It's Metal Mickey. Now, was that a show that was shown in America?
I don't recall. I don't remember
I
hearing about it.
I remember seeing it as a kid. It might have been a British produced. I'll need to look into that. But yeah, it's a great suggestion. But okay, so we've come to the end now. This has been a great stream. Some fantastic suggestions, and I hope everyone watching learned something. I sure as hell did. I hope you got good use of those discount codes. As I said, those were only valid for the duration of this stream. So if you want to get in there and grab something, now's your chance. But I want to say a massive thank you to Scott for coming on. And
Welcome, and thank you for having me.
oh, you're absolutely welcome, and giving us this really interesting insight into the world of 3D printing. I knew nothing about it going into this, so I've learned a lot. And I'm so glad that everyone had their chance to put forth suggestions for future ideas. Now, going forward on the CFCB website, is there an option for comments or to email you with potential ideas?
Yeah, there's a contact me section on
Okay.
there, and it sends the information right to my phone, and it's an app I can open up, and I can
Right.
comment directly.
Right.
And I could try to put a blog on there if people are
Right.
interested, and
And also,
where people can comment and put stuff on there.
and I can see here on the YouTube stream, there's the link to the CFCB store. From that link, you can access all parts of the website. So if you have some ideas that you didn't want to share publicly, by all means, fire them off. And I'm sure Scott will tell you if it's doable or not.
Yeah, and I'm welcome. I'm more welcome, or more than happy, rather, to come back and do more 3D printing questions and give away
Absolutely.
my secrets if they want. So
Yeah. So Juan says, a very good stream, Dean. Thanks. By the way, the biker mice from Mars. I vaguely remember that. Max Video, thanks, Scott, and Merry Christmas. Yes, Merry
thank
Christmas
you.
to
Merry
you.
Christmas.
Seth, great stream, guys. Thanks to Scott. Yes, indeed.
Thank you.
Everyone have a Merry Christmas. Yes, you too, Juan. And thank you, everyone. So, everyone, thank you so much for watching this. Thank you for your questions. Hope you got some good scores at the CFCB store. And I will say it's good night from me, and it's good night from Scott.
Yep. Good night, and thank you so much. And everybody have a Merry Christmas.
Absolutely. You too, Scott. We got one more from Ben. Great stream, guys. Awesome to meet Scott, and great ideas and comments in the chat, guys. Hopefully see you all tomorrow night too. Merry Christmas indeed. So
Merry Christmas.
Good night, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. Big thank you to Scott, and we'll see you next time.
All right.